Hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and I am a Western astrologer and Twin Flame channel. And this is a video about the Virgo New Moon taking place on September 2nd at 9:55 p.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, definitely check a time zone converter for your local time. This video update will be specifically for the Twin Flame Divine Counterpart Soulmate Collective. And a couple of quick announcements before we dive in. I have a special workshop coming for those of you who are part of the Twin Flame Divine Counterpart Collective, which is going to be focused for Twin Flames, specifically on getting out of cycles of healing and moving into having when it comes to your connection. If you felt like you have cleared your past life blocks, worked on your attachment style, you've done a lot of healing, and the more healing you do, the more you uncover that there is to do. And it's this never ending cycle of healing and no union. Then the workshop that I'm about to lead with my spiritual mentor is for you. The two of us are going to work together in an 8-week workshop for you that's going to help you establish a container for your union here in the third dimension and really show you some things that nobody really talks about when it comes to living in faith for your connection. So if this is something that's of interest to you, there's a link to my private list below this video. This will get announced in the next week to the private list first. The private list will also have special pricing that will not be available to YouTube. So if you know you like saving money, getting in early, and getting things before they sell out, then please make sure you're on my private list. Like I said, that link is below your video. And if you know you're already on the list, but you haven't received anything in a while, check your spam filters. Chances are you just need to save my address to your safe list and you'll be right back where you need to be. Star Club is about to open after we do the workshop that I'm going to do with my spiritual mentor for Twin Flames. Star Club will open this fall again, and it's an opportunity for you to learn, practice, and share astrology in a community with me. So if you are intrigued by the movements of the planets and you've wanted to study astrology with me and you want to understand the way I do what I do, Star Club is the way to do it. Again, link to join and get on that wait list is also below this video. I have started doing some more polls and posts. So if this is something that you have found fun, I would love to hear in the comments. If you like that sort of community engagement, it definitely takes me a minute to kind of craft it. So if you're like, I can do without the polls, just stick to the astrology girl, then I'm good with hearing that. Less work on my plate. But if there's something in particular, you're like, okay, I would love to know the answer to this question in our community. Can you do a poll about this or ask a question about that? Drop it below the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts for ways we can sort of continue to get to know each other in this space and have some fun getting to know each other's thoughts. Now, if you're new here, welcome. Please hit the subscribe button and that notification bell. That's the best way to be notified when I go live. And at the end of every Lightworker energy update, which is the energy update posted alongside this one, I do post something called First Look inside of there, which gives you a preview into the next lunation's energy, kind of gives you a broader picture of the full 4-week time frame that we're walking into. So thanks so much for being here. Without further ado, let's get into a recap of this Virgo new moon. I did a detailed deep dive of the Virgo new moon and that Lightworker energy update. I consider this a part 2 to that. So if you really want to have an understanding of why I'm interpreting what I'm interpreting the way I'm interpreting it in the Virgo new moon video, please watch the Lightworker update first and then come back to this twin flame video for your part 2. Let's talk about this. We've got an opposition to Saturn for this new moon. We've got a trine to Ceres and Pholus here, the energy I've been talking about all year that's about releasing toxicity. We've got a loose square from Jupiter there in Gemini. And this is interesting because new moons normally portend new beginnings. However, this energy here is talking about closures because Ceres deals with closures and completions. This energy here is talking about closures because Saturn specifically deals with releasing things that are harmful to us. Um, there's a lot of closure energy here. We see Jupiter in Gemini, and this is giving us a lot of creativity to move into some new directions. And this new moon overall shows up as a decision point, given all of these placements. Mercury will also have completed its retrograde movement on August 28th and will be in its final trine to Chiron here in Aries, and its final square with Uranus here in Taurus, which will bring insights, sensitivities, clarity, uncertainty, hesitation in communication and thoughts, self doubt, indicating that further conversations are going to be helpful and that it will continue to be important to double check for meaning and intent in conversation. Venus has a lot going on at this particular new moon and has a lot of impact for us in our love and financial lives as well. And I go into a deep dive of what all of this means, including an eclipse preview, because Venus is already in her pre-eclipse position for the solar eclipse, new beginning eclipse on October 2nd. It's her, the South Node, Lilith that are already lined up. Certainly at this particular Virgo new moon, that combination in combination with an opposition to Pisces, a conjunction to Juno and Lilith there, a square to that Pholus Ceres combo, pesky Pholus Ceres, bringing up all of our issues and telling us to heal, and a square to Mars there in Gemini. I cover what this means in full detail in that Lightworker energy update and how to handle it. So I'm not going to rehash it, but suffice it to say, if you're in the middle of challenging love situations, especially as the Mercury retrograde hit, this Venus configuration that's lining up in the upcoming eclipse is likely the reason. So definitely have a listen to that. Let's get into what the divine counterparts are doing at this new moon. We've got Juno, our divine feminine energy here in one of her home signs, Libra, conjunct Lilith there at that 7th degree, conjunct Venus as well at that 5th degree. We've got a square to Ceres and Pholus, as I mentioned here. Um, and so what's interesting is that they're all meeting up at the South Node. Normally, Venus and Juno in Libra want to work collaboratively with other people. Normally, they're indicative of a coming together, especially at a new moon. Normally, this is classic romantic new beginning energy. However, the South Node in the mix, which opens gateways to the past, and Shaman's asteroid, Make Make, in the mix, which is talking about paying attention and honoring your hard won lessons and disengaging when things are not truly fair for us. The fairness piece being about Libra, where they all sit. This is what's making it a little less new beginning E. Lilith in Libra turns up the volume on the what's in it for me conversation and makes it a bit more of a focal point of this energy, especially because Lilith is sitting at 1 degree conjunction to our divine feminine energy there. And like all things, there's light and shadow to this. We can take it too far into bending situations to our will and steamrolling other people, regardless of what's good for people who are involved and play win lose. Or we can lean into knowing what our bottom line is and that of other people and work toward win win situations. There's always a win win option available. But when we don't take it, typically it's a lack in communication or a fear of not getting needs met. So, really expanding our hearts to be inclusive and challenging us to know that our needs can and will get met if we stay focused and dedicated to the highest good of all involved. This is a good way to use this energy. Due to the square, to Lilith and Juno from Ceres and Pholus. We do have a heightened chance to fall into old patterns that we told ourselves we weren't going to go back to. I got to be honest, I have in my sessions been hearing a lot of Lilith in shadow. And I'm not surprised given her close communion here with the divine feminine energy and the divine feminine's home sign. And they're both of their connection to the South Node, which is about the past, and Shaman's asteroid there as well. This configuration in shadow, I've been hearing a lot of it. So I'm just going to lay it out for you since not all of you are going to book sessions, but you're going to know if you've been in one of these shadows when you hear it. And you can comment your number below if you want. I certainly have been in my version of these. You don't have to say anything, but I'm going to name it and leave it here so that you and then get into what's the solution for this. So Lilith and Juno coming together in shadow with the South Node and Make Make. Things I've been hearing in my sessions. And so I'm going to be clear. This is not to call any one person out because I've heard a lot of it in the last 6 weeks. So all of these I have heard more than twice. So this isn't about any one client. First issue, number one, faking it when it comes to physical intimacy, either faking enjoyment to please your partner or faking unwellness because you can't stand to be touched by them. See also sexual withholding as a form of punishment. Number two, staying in connections for the financial gain only or because regret of missed chances feels easier to live with than fear of the unknown. Number three, shutting down in connection and pushing connection away because you've maxed out your communication skills and tools. You have no idea how to engage another person who is also triggered in this energy and have a productive conversation. Now, y'all know I stay recommending the personal development school for this. Go ahead and Google it if this is you. Number four, using your unregulated nervous system and need for additional support in such high change times to make other people do things to help you feel secure, get your groceries, pick up your kids, cancel their commitments. Instead of just asking for the reassurance, getting professional support to navigate your changes, or doing any nervous system regulation of your own, you just have a meltdown on somebody else's energy and time without necessarily being accountable or responsible for the fact that you've needed to regulate your nervous system daily for months now, and you're choosing not to do that, but instead use another person to do it for you. That's a challenge. That's a problem. It's not that you can't ask people for help. Ask, but don't force. That's the difference with Lilith. Number five, using substances, food, work, or other behaviors to numb out and avoid addressing challenging conversations and connection, or avoid making challenging changes within yourself that could enhance connection. Number six, seeing anyone who doesn't want what you want as fill in the blank diagnosis, usually not professionally given, to justify actions you're taking to make them pay for the harm caused by their, I'm using air quotes again, undiagnosed issues, either emotionally or financially. In other words, getting into victim triangle behaviors. Now, if you've never heard of the victim triangle, great time to Google it because there is another way to navigate that one if it resonates. Lastly, but not leastly, number seven, and a classic in this community in particular, in any religious or spiritually affiliated community, over spiritualizing the challenges and changes as divine will and using that as a reason to do nothing and or insist that you're stuck. In this energy, I promise you, none of us are stuck. But if you feel stuck, there may be some choices that you may not like, but you know are the answer, or you may not have enough information or skills to create a new option. And so getting outsourced support is really going to break the cycle for you. Now, these are the kinds of Lilith and shadow extremes that can very easily show up when in tension with Neptune, Ceres and Pholus, Pluto, power, trying to pull us back into old patterns here in Capricorn, right? And this is all inside of our divine feminine energy fields, regardless of gender, right? You can have divine feminine energy, everyone does. But when Juno and Lilith are in this particular conversation in this particular way, it is opening up a lot more of the shadow side of Lilith. Now, when Juno and Venus move out of position in about 2 weeks' time, this is going to feel a lot less intense. Juno's going to move into Scorpio first, which is the sign she's going to kick it in for, I think, about 10 to 11 months. She's got a nice long retrograde in Scorpio next year. Okay. And so when we have all this combination at a moment like a Virgo new moon, it's going to give us a lot of opportunity to make some new choices. Okay. The energy is going to shift in, like I said, roughly or 2 weeks, and it's going to make this feel a lot less intense. But that is not going to solve the problems that have shown themselves throughout this period. Only we can do that with our choices. And I'm going to say, because this is a configuration that's attached to the eclipse cycle in part, for some of you, these challenges really showed up last year with the beginning of the Aries Libra eclipse cycle in 2023. For others, this has been a slow build since Ceres and Pholus really showed up in Capricorn in the late winter, early spring of this year. Okay. So, what we can do to balance this out, I'm going to lay out some options and opportunities. So, if you're like, oh, yeah, some of those resonated and I don't like the way that feels, I don't like being in that energy. So, what we can lean into in divine feminine energetic fields is using Virgo's energy of this new moon to really discern a Virgo keyword, using that Virgo and energy to discern the difference between fear and problems that can have solutions. Okay. Because where it's fear, we need to do some work with our nervous system, really talk through maybe with a coach or a sponsor or a boss or an advocate. What are my actual options so that I'm not living in some sort of unknown catastrophizing space in my own mind? Right? And if there's an actual problem, really tackling it in very Virgoan ways. Let's make a list. Let's take the pieces apart. What pieces need to be solved and in which order to deal with the issue. Okay. It will also be key to face that this is a time that does require decisions. Decisions are a very Virgoan thing. Decisions must be made at this new moon. Even no decision is still a decision. It's just a decision to let anyone and everyone else's needs be considered above our own in a situation, which may or may not, I guarantee you, it's not going to be in your best interests. So, using the Virgo new moon to gather facts, another Virgoan, excellent quality to use, gather facts and information to decide which fire, once dealt with, will slacken the flames on all the other fires, and then prioritize another wonderful Virgo gift And skill, prioritize. What's the order? What's the triage order? What's the hierarchy here? Another wonderful Virgoan way to work with this energy is to ask for support or hire services where you've hit a roadblock with time, skill, or adequate information to solve a challenge. Using services is one of Virgo's domains, thinking critically, more Virgo things, and prioritizing facts over feelings and situations. Of course, you want to get your emotional needs met, like where you need to do deep breathing or tapping or EFT or sit with a friend or a therapist and cry. Do that. No one's saying don't do that, but don't let that be all you do or neglect that you need that to such a degree that it comes out sideways in these other sort of Lilithian shadow type behaviors. Okay. Really going to be important to get our emotional needs handled and then use our minds, big brains, so we don't get caught up in emotional impulses. Really take the time to separate feelings from facts at a moment such as this. The light side of Virgo is really going to be our saving grace at this Virgo new moon in situations where we're watching Lilith's shadow attach her little marionette strings to our behaviors under stress. So, laid out some Virgoan solutions there, but if you need any support figuring out what your choices are, where you can look for support in your birth chart, how to handle a challenging issue according to your astrology, getting out of Lilith's shadow behaviors, because in your chart, Lilith will show you what your bottom line is in any situation, or what solutions the transits are supporting for you. And the timing of changes in the last 4 months of this year, the upcoming eclipses, now is the time to book a reading. September is starting to book pretty quickly, and it's a great time to get the clarity you need before this energy gets any crazier the closer we get to the eclipses. Okay. So let's talk now about Jupiter, our divine masculine energy here in Gemini. Jupiter is no more, but releasing a conjunction with Mars there at the 28th degree of Gemini. It's almost complete. Soon as that Mars gets past that 29th degree, we'll call it a wrap on that energy. Got a sextile to Mercury, who is finishing retrograde motion there in Leo. Got a trine to Cheroklo, who is in Aquarius, offering some divine intervention and support. Got a square to Saturn and Nessus in conjunction there inside of Pisces. And we've got a sextile to Chiron in Aries, having that lovely let me deal with my wounds and step into leadership and light conversation for all of us. So, after months of a lot of momentum and elevation and expansion due to Jupiter in conversation with Uranus, this last month and a half, there's been a slow in the speed of things because Jupiter has locked into conversation with Saturn through the end of the year. Now, this configuration will make us more balanced, more rational, more thoughtful about our next steps, more disciplined as well, both in our lives and in connection. But thank goodness Mars is pulling away from Jupiter in this configuration because Mars added a lot of gasoline to a fire that really didn't need any help in terms of hastiness and pushiness and a sense of fabricated urgency. It was really useful for those who found themselves in a rut to shake themselves loose, like hit that eject button from Couch Lock. But for those of you who were already in motion, that probably felt like a lot of extra pressure in the month of July and August. Now that Mars is leaving Gemini and locking into his retrograde position in Cancer for the close of this year, this is going to ameliorate any of that pressure to grow really fast, to move urgently. It's still movement still required, but if you felt any internal pressure around it, that's going to release after we get past the Virgo new moon. Okay. Also in here, we see Mercury and sextile, as I mentioned, and this is going to allow us to use Jupiter's expansion and optimism and Mercury's thoughtfulness and communication powers in more balanced ways without overdoing it. So it's really interesting to see when you look at this from extremes of divine masculine and divine feminine, those of you who identify a more polarized energy, as in, I am a divine feminine, they are a divine masculine, as opposed to a more balanced energy where you can really see both in your field. If you're having that more polarized experience, it's very interesting to see the divine feminine has really shifted into, with Lilith's energy, a lot more of the, you know what, if it's not going to work for me, it's just not going to work, period. I'm out energy. And the divine masculine has moved into this, well, hey, let's talk about that. Let's theorize, let's converse, let's see what we can make work energy. This does really balance out during the late month of September, early September, late August, these like 3 week period of time where we do see Juno rest in harmony in fellow air sign Libra to Jupiter in air sign Gemini. This constitutes like a mini union window or a communication window, as I like to think of them, that opens up when they're in this harmonious place. They're both in air signs, which are all about communication. And it opens up an opportunity for people to really get on the same page. Challenges being, there's a lot of stuff still to be worked out on either side, for each as individuals. If you're in that kind of polaric energy on the divine feminine side, there's a lot of rebalancing your own energy that needs to happen so things are not so all or nothing. And on the divine masculine side, if you're in the polaric end of that energy, there still seems to be a lot of, quote, getting your life together, figuring out new pathways, new options, new opportunities, in particular when it comes to identifying self in the world of work here, and creative projects, especially with Mercury there in the creative sign of Leo and Saturn and Pisces. There's some sort of self reinvention that seems to be underway in the divine masculine energy spaces if you identify at that polaric extreme. Okay. Overall, though, I will say that the divine masculine energy for all of us, even those who are not in a polaric extreme, but really see divine masculine and feminine within ourselves equally or in our personal ratio, this combination is going to allow us to use the expansion and optimism, like I mentioned, from Jupiter, and the thoughtfulness and communicative powers from Mercury in very balanced ways without overdoing it. This is a grounded optimism, an open curiosity, a solution oriented energy, forward movement, and practical step by step methods. This configuration is giving us the patience and optimism that we need to keep putting one foot in front of the other in a moment of high change and unpredictability. This trine from Chericlo that I mentioned has been with us for most of the year in the divine masculine energy fields. And this is bringing a lot of ancestral and divine intervention upon request. I cannot emphasize this enough. The mythology of Chericlo is indicative of needing to ask, and then it is given. Okay. The Chiron aspect here is adding in a little taste of licking our wounds where things may not have worked out for us in the past and projecting that into the future, especially in relationship or work. There's a little bit of self doubt, could be some negative thinking that can creep in. And in this case, might be a really good counterbalance, to be honest, with to all the expansion that Jupiter had going on this spring and summer. This may help the pendulum resettle in the middle, especially for those of us who need a little practicality and grounded thinking and feeling for our dreams to become real, so that we're not spending so much time waiting for magic. And for those who've gone too far into fantasy, this is really going to be an invitation to step into being your own magic and taking inspired and grounded action through new approaches. The only caveat with this energy is to make sure that you're not getting overwhelmed with pessimism or something is wrong with me or low self esteem because things are moving a little slower than they did in the spring. All of those are a real possibility with Jupiter in the conversations that I mentioned. Now, overall, there's been a lot of expansion coming through our divine masculine energy fields and a lot of closure and transformation coming through our divine feminine energy fields this year. Almost like two legs walking. One stays still while the other is moving. This is what creates forward motion. And so some of you have really seen that in your connection. For those who identify their connection in some format of separation, this new moon may feel like it's a deepening of pulling you both in different and separate directions. And in some ways, I got to be honest, it really is. Within the context of the Aries gateway point to union that extends through 2028, and I've talked about that extensively in the channeled messages for twin flames. It's in the playlist for channeled messages. So just have a listen there if you're new. Welcome. Um, but within the context of that Aries gateway point to union that extends through 2028, the big idea here is that as you deepen your own commitment to your ambitions and your own steps and your own drive, all Aries things, it sets the stage, it sets the energy, it recalibrates your frequency for union to get magnetized in the third dimension. Those of you, there's a woman that I used to listen to like pre 2020 in the tarot sphere. I think her channel is now called Tarot Therapy. She goes by Princess India. She's a wonderful resource. She's actually a trained psychotherapist who I think she's got like a PhD, but she also does tarot here on YouTube. So if you like that blend, she's amazing. And I remember something she shared years ago, like I said, like pre 2020 about separation and union. And I'm going to share that with you now. Shout out to you, Princess India, because this was really brilliant. She said, when you and a person do feel like you have some sort of like intertwined destiny or like it's meant to be, but for whatever reason in the now or past time, it just didn't work out. You will be guided around a pathway that will navigate you to where you're supposed to be after you and that person split up. So you guys go your separate ways. But what can end up happening, unfortunately, for a lot of people is that instead of continuing to move forward on your path, you get stuck right about here. You start trying to like work your way back here instead of continuing forward, which is what you're supposed to be doing. Now, when we get stuck in this one location and start trying to work our way backwards, what ends up happening is as this person is moving forward on their pathway, when they arrive at the point they're supposed to be for that reunion, if you have been messing around back here, you either are late or you miss it. And so this is one of these kinds of new moons. Thank you, Princess India. You definitely provided that visual in the way back. It was a brilliant visual on one of your tarot updates. But what I can say about that is that this particular Virgo new moon reads like that. In fact, all of this kind of period that marks the Aries gateway to union between 2023 and 2028, 29, all of this period reads like that, where many people will have some experience of deepened personalization, individualization, because the counterparts met up in Aries, which is all about the self and the individual, before there is some sort of coming together. You'll all be very excited to know the next union window does take place in the sign of partnership in Libra. So the foundation you're laying now, the work you're doing now, is not for nothing. It really is a setup for a calibration toward a stabilized coming together and harmonics in the third dimension. But in order for that to happen, you really are going to have to be grounded in yourself, clear about who you are, who you're not, your life set up around your own ambitions and goals so that you're not falling into this relationship in the third dimension, but instead you're establishing your joint light in the third dimension as a beacon for others. Okay. So that's what I have on that. Now, for those of you who identify in some format of union, this new moon will allow you to both start seeing solutions to challenges that have been with you for the year. This may be where you're both getting a better understanding of the other person's needs, their fears, their desires, their intentions. You may even have had some light bulbs go off for yourself around your own fears, needs, desires, and intentions. This is a great opportunity to have curious conversations about patterns you may be stuck in yourself, or if you noticed patterns and your partner looping in a pattern, just checking in with them and saying, "Hey, I'm noticing this. I'd love to just have some better insight to know if there's anything I can do to support you. Can we talk about it? Um, like where is this coming from? Like help me understand so I can be better support to you." This is a great time to have the conversations needed that can move you onto higher timelines through your choices. Now, I've said it a lot in the last several lunar updates. I'll say it again. It's a great time for communication, open minds, open hearts. As long as you know how to share your feelings and thoughts and be accountable at the same time, heart to hearts can really bring you to the same page and bring a lot of healing and revelation through mid September, as well as give you a chance to tackle a lot of challenges together. So if you need any support with this, you can always book a reading with me over at kmoonastro.com. I do offer couples readings. They are 90 minutes because 60 is just way too short to do two people. But if you are like, okay, yeah, this sounds really good. I want to be on my way and calibrated for that union that I know is coming. Where is the access point to it in my chart, K Moon? How do I set this up? What am I supposed to be focused on? Book with me over at kmoonastro.com. Link is below this video. If all you want to do is talk about that, 30 minutes is plenty of time. We can even throw in some eclipse action in there. But if you want to go deeper than that, give yourself the benefit of the hour so that we can really look at your chart in depth. Okay. As always, thank you all for your support, for every like, every share, and every subscribe. I really appreciate that because of the way it helps the algorithm move the content in front of people who really need content like this, who are kind of floating out there in a sea of content that's far less detailed or far less focused on some of the richer nuances astrologically. So if this is something that you have found helpful, every like, every share, every subscribe, every comment really lets YouTube know, hey, we should push this content out more. Okay. And as always, if you want to share some of your experiences in the comment section, it certainly helps other people self identify as being not alone in this. And I promise you, especially with those Lilith shadow behaviors, none of us are. Everybody has some form of a Lilith shadow behavior that will show up in their chart. Um, even if it's not showing itself now, we all have a Lilith. So if it's showing up now, I just want to let you know, pat you on the back. Good on you for being able to identify it. Good on you for being able to know that you want to do something about it. And good on you for being willing to take some action steps to make some changes. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Take great care and bye for now.